Our question says, a company that sells cereal wants to cut the amount of cardboard needed to make their Cocoa Crunchies boxes in half. One of their employees suggests that they could do it by cutting the height of the box in half. Is the employee correct? Justify your answer. And then there's a diagram of what the box looks like. So when I read through this question, I'm just going to highlight any important information there. So it says they want to cut the amount of cardboard, that's important, in half. So half means divide by 2. It says one of their employees, so that's someone who works for them, suggests that they could do it by cutting the height in half. And we want to know, are they right? And then justify your answer means show some calculations or some work to show how you got that answer. So when I read through it and it talks about the amount of cardboard, that is surface area. So anytime we're talking about the outside of the shape, or in this case, the outside of the box, we're talking about surface area. If I was doing volume, we would be talking about the amount of cereal in the box. So if they wanted to reduce the amount of cereal in the box, right, into half, then that would be volume. But because we're doing the amount of cardboard, that's the outside of the box, that's surface area. So I know that they want to cut the surface area in half. So they want to divide it in 2. And somehow the employee thinks that if they cut the height of the box in half, that would do the trick. So I would probably start this question by just drawing what the employee has in mind. So they want to take the box, they're going to leave the length and the width the same, but they're going to just half the height. So they're going to cut the height in half, but they're going to leave the other parts of the shape the same. So still 14 centimeters wide, still 6 centimeters deep, but the difference is instead of being 24 centimeters tall, they're going to divide that by 2, so 24 divided by 2 is 12 centimeters. So the new box would be 12 centimeters tall, 14 centimeters wide, and 6 centimeters deep. So in order to know whether or not that is half the amount of cardboard, I think I'm going to need to do some calculations. So we're talking about surface area, so I think I might find the surface area of the original box, and then do the surface area of the new proposal for the box, and then see whether or not it worked out. So this is not an opinion question. This is a question where you're actually supposed to calculate and do some math to prove or disprove this person's theory. So I'm going to do the original first. So this is a rectangular prism. We've got length, width, and height. So this would be my length, this is my width, this is my height. And the surface area of a rectangular prism, I like to use this version that we wrote out on our formula sheet, which is 2 width height plus 2 length width plus 2 length height. So basically I just multiplied the 2 into the bracket on the formula sheet. So 2 width height plus 2 length width plus 2 length height. Now, something you should always stop and consider is whether we are missing any of these sides. So this is a box of cereal. Is it going to have both a top and a bottom? Yes. Is it going to have a front and a back? Yes. Is it going to have both sides? Yes. So I don't think there are any sides missing on that box. If there were, the cereal would fall out. So I'm just going to sub in all my numbers. So width is 6. Height is 24, and then plus 2 times length, which is 14, and then the width, which is 6, and then plus 2 times my length, which is 14, and my height, which is 24. Okay, so I have multiplication and I have addition, so I think I'm going to do all of the multiplications first. So I'm going to multiply these 3 numbers together, these 3 numbers together, these 3 numbers together, and then I will add them up. So let's try 2 times 6 times 24 is 288. Okay. 2 times 14 times 6 is 168. And then 2 times 14 times 24 is 672. Now that number seems a lot larger than the others, so I am just going to check one more time. Yep, and it is the front part of the box, which is bigger. All right, so I'm going to add this with the 168 and the 288 to get 1,128. This is centimeters and squared. So the original box would have a surface area of 1,128 centimeters squared. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out the employees box. So the surface area, it is still a rectangular prism. So it's still 2 width height plus 2 length width plus 2 length height. We still have a top and a bottom, a front and a back, and 2 sides. Otherwise, the serial would fall out. We don't want that. So the only thing that's going to be different this time is that our height is now 12 instead of 24. So I'm going to do 2 times the width, which is still 6, times the height, which is now 12, plus 2 times the length, which is 14, times the width, which is 6, and then plus 2 times the length, which is 14, times the height, which is 12. Okay, same thing as last time. I'm going to multiply together each of these groups of numbers, and then we will add them up. So 2 times 6 times 12 is 144. And then 2 times 14 times 6 is 168. And then 2 times 14 times 12 is 336. Okay, so if I add 336, 168, and 144 together, I get 648 centimeters squared. So the real question here was, is the employee correct? Correct about what? About cutting the height, making that half the surface area. So what I need to do is compare these two numbers together, and there's a number of ways to do that. You could take 1,128, divide that by 2, and then compare it to see if it's actually the same number. You could take 648 and times that by 2, and then look to see if it's 1,128. Or you could take 1,128 and divide it by 648 to see whether that works out to be 2, right? Because it would be half. I think I'm going to take 1,128 and divide that by 2. So 1,128 divided by 2 gives me 564. And that is half the surface area. Now you'll notice I did this calculation off to the side. I didn't just divide this by 2 and then continue in the same calculation. And then what I'm going to do is compare. Did I get the same answer? No, I did not. This is actually less than this. So really the question just says, are they right? And the answer is no. This is more than half of the surface area. But the bigger question is why is it more than half of the surface area? And if I look at my calculations, I can kind of see it in a couple of places. So here, 288, half of 288 is 144. Half of 672 is 336. But half of 168 is not 168. So when he took the box and cut it in half, in order for it to be half the surface area, you'd basically just have to cut this in half and then open it up, which means it wouldn't have a lid. So just cutting the height in half would give you half the surface area if you didn't put a lid on top. But when you put the lid on top, it means that that top and bottom area isn't half. So that's why the numbers didn't really work out. So all I really have to say is no. So therefore, no. The employee is not correct. Good idea, though. the surface area of their box. I'm going to say is more than half.